Real estate in Canada is expensive. Now, not all of Canada is expensive, but if we're being honest with each other, a lot of the areas in Canada in which people actually choose to live have become more and more expensive over time. So in today's video, what we're going to talk about is the 5 things that could be done to limit the overall demand for real estate, because we always talk about having an inventory issue, which I still think is mathematically correct. But if you take away the demand side of the market, the inventory issue is not as much of an issue. And if these things were done to decrease the demand, it would then cause housing to become more affordable. So I'm going to go over 5 things that I think could actually be done. But then after we talk about the idea, we're going to rank them in terms of not likely to happen, could eventually happen, or hey, this is actually happening. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom Story. I'm a real estate team leader here in the city of Toronto. Thank you for being back here and watching this video. If you find any value in today's video, all I ask is give this video a big like and a thumbs up so the algorithm will show it to other awesome people like you. If you haven't already and you're enjoying my videos, please subscribe. We're almost on the way to 10,000. It's going to be great when we hit that milestone. Now, before we talk about the 5 things that could be done, let's talk about what's already in place, but maybe hasn't really had the impact that the government thought it might. So we already have a 2-year foreign buyer ban here in Canada. It is still too early to say if that is working or not. But I still think it's a smaller portion of the market than people actually think it is. In many large markets in Canada, we have a vacancy tax that was new in Toronto for 2023. Basically, what they're trying to do is make sure that properties are not left vacant so that they are rented out. It brings more rental inventory to the market. We also have a speculation tax now. So if you sell a property in less than 12 months just for the purpose of flipping it to make a profit, you're paying a higher tax on that. There's lots of exemptions in that as well. There's also a lot of talk about banning blind bidding for Canadian real estate. I don't think that's actually going to change prices that much. I think the main thing we have to focus in here is supply and demand. Okay, so here are the 5 ideas that could be put in place by our government to curb the demand and in turn bring down real estate prices in Canada. Number 1 is capital gains tax going up. On secondary properties, you pay 50% capital gains on the money that you earn for the period of time that you own that property. If that were to go up to 75%, or maybe a sliding scale depending on how long you own that property, I think that could deter some potential investors from picking up other investment properties because they don't want to deal with that down the road. I think that one would more be like the government trying to get money back from all the spending that happened in the last few years more than actually impacting the market. If we look at the likelihood of that happening, I think there's actually potential that could happen at some point in the future. Idea number 2 is increase the minimum down payment required to buy an investment property in Canada. Right now, if you're buying a secondary property that you're not going to live in, you have to put down 20% minimum. If that number were to go up to 30%, 35%, 40%, that would deter a lot of people from buying secondary properties, which would then take away demand from the market. And maybe that secondary property that someone wanted to buy, that they were competing with a first-time home buyer, well, now that first-time home buyer is just competing with other first-time home buyers, not investors. Now, this is something that I've heard talked about previously when the market was really trending upwards. Now that we've been going down for a little while and stabilizing in certain markets, I don't know if that's something that's going to happen, but if the market does pick up again significantly at some point in the future, that will definitely come back to the conversation. So I think it is something that could potentially happen, but in the future. Number 3 would just be raising property taxes, right? So they get you on property taxes, they get you on land transfer tax when you buy a property. If property taxes were raised, that would create less demand for housing, but would also probably hurt a lot of people that actually want to just buy a house to live in a house and not have it as an investment or be a speculator or things like that. I think the likelihood of that happening is very low. Of course, property taxes will go up over a period of time, but for them to just double one day is very, very low. Number 4 would be the limiting of immigration. Our immigration numbers have gone up significantly. In fact, in the past year, we brought 1 million people to this country. They're going to have to live somewhere, right? It's something we have to acknowledge. The likelihood of that happening is very, very low. I think we're going to continue to do that, and that's probably a whole nother video on its own. I think immigration is good for this country, but more people moving here means that we have to build more housing as well. And the building more housing side of that is just not happening at the same rate in which people are coming to this country. Number 5 would be building more affordable, and that is the key word here, more affordable rental stock. People want options. Not everybody wants to own. People would like to rent, but the rental prices have gone significantly up in the past year with the interest rates going up, right? So if we actually gave developers, and again, not all developers are evil, if we actually gave developers incentives to build more rental stock and perhaps affordable rental stock, that would actually be a good thing. Let's throw in a bonus one. Let's talk about a potential number 6. And this is probably the most controversial one, which is unlikely to ever happen. But what if you put a cap on how many properties you could own in Canada, right? Let's say you're a Canadian citizen and they say, okay, you can buy property, but you got your principal residence and you can have 2 investment properties. That's it. You can have 3 residential properties. It wouldn't include commercial properties, but if they put a cap on how many properties people could buy, that would significantly decrease demand. Like we've talked about this in other videos, right? 41% of all condos in Ontario are owned by investors. 41%. If you put a cap on how many properties people could own, that number would be significantly down and prices really wouldn't have gone up like we've seen. I'd love to know what you think. Please comment below if you think anything I discussed in today's video could actually happen, and if it happened, if it would have a real impact on the market. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Tom Story, and remember, home is where your story begins.